Welcome to the NSI podcast, where technology, innovation, and strategy come together to empower today's IT leaders. Today's guest is Trevor Seifert, Chief Information Officer at the University of Central Arkansas. Today, we'll explore his career to the CIO of a university and how technology is transforming higher education and what the future holds for universities navigating rapid change. All right, Trevor, we're so glad to have you on today. How are you doing?
Good, you guys. Happy to be here.
Great, great. Well, we always like to start off with a little bit about you, and I noticed that you started out at Dillard's, which used to be my favorite department store. So I want to hear that journey, how you went from Dillard's all the way up to the University of Central Arkansas.
Graduated from the University of Central Arkansas back in December of '96, and Dillard's was one of the companies that recruited heavily on higher ed institutions in this region. And so towards my last semester of school, they came on campus and were doing interviews and recruitment. And I ended up with an interview with Dillard's and got a job there straight out of graduation from the university. And they hired me as basically a JCL and mainframe COBOL programmer. They were still mainframe, and we were coding COBOL and rewriting their receiving system. And shortly after getting into there, another colleague of mine who went on the interview process with me and we got hired together, we both got into what we called level 2 support, which was their hardware and software support for the Dillard's distribution center. So we spent about a year and a half, 2 years traveling the country to all the different distribution centers at Dillard's and upgrading their software. And we would, busy season, things like that for Dillard's kicks up, the Black Fridays and stuff. We'd have to start loading product into Dillard's distribution centers September, October. These DCs would run 7 days a week. We were working, just the off the wall hours with trying to support these guys. Almost like flying fixed guys, because if a distribution center went down and we couldn't fix it remote, we literally would jump on a plane. We would throw parts in a cooler and duct tape the cooler and send it on the plane. And we would meet the cooler at the airport and head to the distribution center, work all night, get them back up and running to turn around and monitor the next day. And I was freshly married in June of '97, and that flying fix and those hours and living 30 miles from Dillard's, there was a lot of travel, and my wife wasn't as keen on that as I was. And so I started looking at other opportunities and ended up at Axiom Corporation as an Oracle database administrator. Had never logged into an Oracle database a day in my life. We were doing some SQL Server DB2 stuff at Dillard's, and got the opportunity to come to Axiom as an Oracle DBA, and grew from just a what we called a production DBA into a systems DBA, where we were building the Oracle databases and supporting. We supported the largest customer at the corporation at Axiom, and just kind of grew from there into more of a tech lead within the space at Axiom, all the way into a director, senior manager, and senior director of basically the enterprise applications for our customers. So from there is when Mike Lloyd actually is the one that left Axiom Corporation and came over to UCA as the CIO. And after about 6 months of Mike being over here, I'd reached out to him. I was looking for a change. I was supporting the largest customer at Axiom, and all the responsibilities and day in, day out things. We were running change calls 2 nights a week, 52 weeks out of the year. And we'd have to, those change calls would start at 10 p.m., get over midnight, 1, 2, 3, and turn around and still work your 40 hours. And so I was looking for a change, and Mike came over here and settled in. And, I told him, I said, if there was anything over at UCA that my skill set would help the university out, I'd be interested in talking to you. And shortly thereafter, Mike reached out to me, and they were creating a position director of program management, basically at the university in the IT department. And so I interviewed for that and came over in July of 2018 in that position. And from there, Mike decided he wanted to take on a new endeavor as the SVP of First Orion, and he had reached out to the president and others, and we're like, "Hey, we've got the IT department rolling in the right direction. Why don't you just slide Trevor into that CIO role and keep this train moving down the same track we've been on for the last year and a half?" And so that's how I ended up from working at Dillard's department stores, basically, to the University of Central Arkansas as the CIO in a nutshell.
Well, that's a good journey. I mean, you've been the CIO for about a year, you said?
Well, that was in 2019 that I became the CIO. So now, I've been the CIO now for about 6.5 years. They named me the interim CIO in July of 2019, August of 2019, and then full-time CIO in like October of 2019. So.
Okay. All right. Great. That is great.
So what year did you graduate?
I graduated in December of '96 from UCA.
96. Okay,
Yep.
Very cool.
Major in math with a minor in computer science.
Okay, all right. You talked about COBOL. Do you ever remember Dr. Fredrickson?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I had him for quite a few semesters. So let me ask you very quickly, and some of our listeners, that's where I'm a alum at the University of Central Arkansas. So this particular episode is of the podcast is near and dear to my heart. So I'm pretty excited. But tell me, Trevor, how is technology reshaping the educational experience at the university?
Well, I mean, one of the things we're trying to do is meet the students where they are. So, I mean, one of the things we try to do is make sure that they've got the tools and software and experience to be able to be successful at the university. And so we do things like ensuring that all of our applications are responsive design and stuff like that, because we want to make sure that student, there might be a student that's only got a cell phone, that they've got to do the majority of the work off the cell phone. Or a Chromebook, or a laptop. And so plus we put labs throughout the campus to allow open access to the library, things like that. And so it's just trying to figure out how to meet the student where they're at so that they have the best chance at being successful.
Okay, very good. Let me ask this real quick, and then I'll hand it over to Cassie. But what's one of the major technology initiatives there at UCA that you're particularly proud of that you've been part of leading?
Well, I mean, there's a lot, because going from, my Axiom Corporation days, I got to do a lot at Axiom with technology, and we built some of the largest databases in the world and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we were, nothing more than, how do I put this in a politically correct way? We were junk mailers. We were offering credit for, credit card agencies and things like that. And so at the end of the day, I'm just making sure that an end user got a credit card offer. And then I came over to the university, and you get to see when you roll out new software, you do an upgrade or something like that, how it can actually impact a faculty, staff, or a student into being able to do their job or be more successful. And so it's a very rewarding thing coming from where I was to where I am today. One of the largest impacts that I think, though, is our response to COVID. It was, in March of 2020, we had 5 people at this university as an entirety that actually had remote access into the university. 5. Probably 75% of our faculty and staff only had desktops. We had no Zoom capabilities. We had no DocuSign or any kind of online signature process, really. And so our reaction to COVID, where we really didn't miss a beat, we spent the next 2 months basically spinning up Global Protect through Palo so that we could give remote access, onboarding Zoom so that people could actually be able to function off this campus. doing synchronous, asynchronous, remote type instructional capabilities. We got key stakeholders from each college, and we would have weekly meetings with these stakeholders on what type of technology they needed for their college to be successful, whether it be the College of Ed, the College of Health and Behavioral Sciences, any of our 5 colleges. We made sure that if they needed a microphone and a camera and a speaker so that they could actually get in a larger space and spread out, but still be able to everybody to be able to hear them, things like that. And we did all of that without, like I said, missing a beat. And so that's probably one of the more successful, we pivoted 180 degrees in probably 60 days to basically not really lose out on anything. So.
Yeah, that was an interesting time, COVID. I remember, there's so many projects that it was like you had to have it up overnight, kind of like from our side, as a consulting firm. I think one time we had to spin up just a really a massive desktop initiative, a virtual desktop initiative. And I think, first problem you had was getting supply chain, right? So it was actually getting all of the equipment and all the servers and everything, getting ready to spin up that. I think we had gotten all the equipment for this one customer shipped on a Thursday, and it was on site. So we had Thursday, and they're like, hey, we need this VDI environment set up and ready to go by Monday. And it's like, I can't remember, it was like 800 seats or something like that. And you're just like, see how this goes. The guys are just working like 20-hour shifts, just trying to get it. And, it's not working right. So figure out where the bugs were. So, but yeah, it's kind of interesting when you have to have things done, what you can get done. Because there's so many times we would have probably been like, there's no way you could do something like that. And I'm sure just you were the same way. There's no way we could get all the faculty and students ready to remote learn and remote work. And then it's like, well, you don't really have a choice. So then the conversation becomes, okay, well, how do we do this now? Right.
Nope, absolutely. By the second month of trying to figure this all out, we were almost a well-oiled machine at getting faculty. Because one of the problems is when we issued a new laptop, put Global Protect on it, we had to train that faculty member or that staff member how to use Global Protect. They had to actually come on campus to log into it for the first time so that it would check into Active Directory as that user. And so we had a station out in front of Burdick with an outdoor AP. They could pull up. We would hand it off to them. They'd log in. We'd give them the instructions right there, and they would drive off. It was like a drive-through service for IT at that point. So
Wow.
We did that for about 3 months.
Wow. That's impressive. Wow. I never stop and think back to that time until you're talking about it. And I think she was 9 months old, and it was just, whew, that was a tough season. But at the same time, it was a good season because I was at home with my baby, but just navigating everything.
That's the other thing about especially our campus. We're a brick and mortar campus. We're basically a single entity higher ed institution, and we are a small town. We had probably 300 international students that never left our campus during COVID, and so we had a thing called essential personnel. And so when we never shut down. We didn't close our doors, anything like that during COVID, because we did have to run. We had to be around and be available for these students that weren't able to go anywhere. And so we were still 24/7, 365 at support for those students that couldn't go anywhere. The president was very forthcoming, and hey, even if there's somebody who's not an international student, but they don't have a place to go, their family life is not where it needs to be, and they really need to be in our res halls because that is their housing. They stayed. We dedicated, probably a dozen or so COVID houses that were spread across this campus or on the peripheral of this campus, and we would we would physically move these students into that COVID housing to make sure that they could be isolated, but we would still feed them 3 meals a day. Airmark would still go and deliver food to them. They had direct access to every one of them had my cell phone number. If they had any kind of internet problems and stuff like that, we worked with Conway Corp because Conway Corp wouldn't go in the house. And so we would coordinate with those guys. So, I mean, it was a trying time, but we really, I'm real proud of the way we came through that and supported our students and our faculty and staff. So
That's great. I never thought about students that didn't have, a place to go because their home wasn't, maybe overseas. So I never thought about that. But our next question was, how do you balance innovation with budget constraints in higher education? Because I know that's a tough one.
Well, yeah, no, it can be a very difficult combination of the two because the good news is what your budget is. You basically we do what we call zero-based budgeting. So I know what next year's budget's going to be for me and the year after, basically. But we've got to factor in. You're allowed to make some directional changes. Usually, the way that I work with our CFO here is, if it's a CapEx expense, if it's going to be a one-time, I need to go buy this and it's not going to cost me down the road, I don't have to build that into my base budget. That's a little different conversation with our CFO. That one's a little bit more forgiving in that ask, where if it's a base budget adjustment that you're going to need, you're going to have to spend the time putting the business case together to really show what benefit that is for the students or the faculty and staff that's impacting. And then we constantly look at, is it required? Is it a nice to have? Are there things that we could offset that with? If we really need to get this new piece of software, this new piece of technology, is there something else that we can offset that with to be able to accommodate that? So, I mean, you have some very tough conversations about what you really have to be successful versus something you might, like to have. But I think we do a good job of really planning. I've got a 5-year long-term funding roadmap that I've got out there that I review with our budget office yearly to kind of make sure that they're accounting for refreshes that I'm going to need in the future. For instance, we're doing a December 26, January 27 network refresh on this campus. And so we've been planning for that now for 5-6 years of, hey, this is the kind of money that we're going to probably need for that December purchase. And so there's a lot of planning and execution that goes on in that.
That's great. Well, since we're talking about that, what emerging technologies do you think the university should be paying attention to now? I know you're getting the refresh, but any other emerging technologies you're interested in focusing on?
Well, I mean, obviously there's AI. AI is a big one, and we're constantly evaluating what's out there and how it's being utilized. For us, from an IT standpoint here, it's really about what the students are bringing to this campus. We need to make sure that those students are capable of living on this campus. We've got, 3,300 beds on this campus. And so I need to make sure that the IoT are supported in a manner that they feel like when they go back to the res hall, they can do what they need to do and function the way they want to function, things like that. We're constantly evaluating faculty and staff software needs. With higher ed and being a state institution, you have to run RFPs for any major purchase. And so we try and get plugged into those RFPs to make sure that as faculty and staff are evaluating new software, that we don't already have something that does that for them, or that we make sure that what they are trying to look at is going to be something that will integrate with our infrastructure and our network and things like that. So it's probably just, AI and what the students are actually showing up with on campus that kind of keep us on our toes.
And like, I know we've talked with another university, and they were able to track all of the students' like steps and really track them and what they were doing. And correlate that with scores and all that. Are y'all able to do that at the university?
So when you say track the students and scores, are you talking about from like a student success standpoint?
Yes.
Yeah, so we do. So we were using a product provided by EAB called Navigate. We've since kind of turned that almost in-house. And Slate has got a student success module, and we're building that module out so that we can midterm grades and stuff like that, so they can flag students that might be falling behind, get them the proper advising and tutoring that they might need. That's absolutely part of our retention process that we have here. And we've got a vice president of enrollment services, and that's one of his edicts, is to try and track those kinds of things to make sure that our retention rates are where they need to be, and that we're able to help the students that, like I said, meet the students where they are. And so that's one of the things. If you have some students that are falling behind or struggling in certain areas, being able to identify those students and get them the needs that they help them be successful.
Right. Well, you mentioned AI, and that I wanted to ask how are like the professors handling it with AI, and like have y'all created a policy around it?
So we're trying to avoid creating a policy.
Okay.
What we're talking about are guardrails and guidelines of how you should be using it. We're encouraging the faculty members to actually embrace it from a student standpoint too, and don't worry about it solely as a way for students to cheat or cut corners or things like that, because we know these students, once they do go beyond our 4 years of higher ed, when they get out into the real world, AI is a real part of what they're going to do from a day-to-day job. And so we're encouraging them from that standpoint. We held a webinar seminar last August for all the faculty, and we had a pretty good turnout. We partnered with CEDL, which is our Center for Excellence Teaching and Learning, and just trying to educate the faculty members. The one things that I was asking them to do, we're a Google school, and so Gemini is part of our technology stack, and so we've got Gemini basically built into our stack. But there are others that are using ChatGPT or any one of the other, dozens out there. And the only thing that I'm asking them to do is kind of reach out to IT and let us vet some of those products for them. If we don't have an enterprise agreement with them, we really need you to check the security settings, because we don't need our data flowing into their model, things like that. And so that's where the guidelines and guardrails come into play, more than just a policy that says you can't do this or you can do that or you have to use this. So that's where we are as a university right now.
And that's what we've been hearing, is more of the universities embracing it, and not, at first everybody was like, it got a bad rep, but it's here to stay, and it's just going to be the way of life now, I feel. And we can either learn how to use it and embrace it and it be helpful to us, or, just grit our teeth.
Absolutely. And I mean, we have some faculty that are not going to be interested in
then I ain't gonna do it
like that. Now, absolutely. We're actually doing a migration right now to a new learning management system in Brightspace. And that Brightspace has got a built-in AI called Lumi, and that Lumi can be used to build your syllabus. I mean, it'll screen scrape a syllabus and create it for you and things like that. But you also have the ability to turn Lumi off at that level. And so we're going to have people that will fully embrace it, and we're going to have people that are going to turn it off and not want to utilize it at all. And, we understand that philosophy too. So.
Okay.
Yeah, we had the we had the CIO from Ole Miss on, and she talked pretty extensively about AI and some of the things that they're trying to accomplish. But I mean, you kind of said some of the same things she did. The students, once they leave here, they're going to have to use it, right? It is a tool. Like it's I remember when I was younger, and I used to have teachers when I was in school be like, hey, using that calculator, right? And I'm just like, well, yeah, now everybody uses calculator, right?
Yeah, pencil and paper are no more, and having to do long division and things like that.
I
And
guess
just
what
plug it
did
into
you
the
use? I don't know. So I'm
well,
like,
like in our own office, we'll work on creating an executive summary for GLBA's yearly summary report. We'll actually go into like ChatGPT and create it, and then we'll go into Gemini and create it, and kind of blend those together, because each one of these models actually has a little bit of a different function to it. And so we catch ourselves doing that quite a bit, even within our division. And back to Rich, back in the old days, like when I was at Axiom, if we would interview a technical resource for a position like a software developer, an Oracle DBA, or a system admin, I mean, one of the questions I would always ask them are, hey, what are you going to do if you run into a problem you've never seen, or an error message on your screen that you're just not familiar with? What are some things that you do to try and resolve that? And if one of their answers, I mean, they can give me multiple answers, but if one of those weren't go to Google and search for it, I would actually, that would be an X next to that for me, because I wanted you utilizing those resources that you had available to you. AI is getting to that same level now, and that's these students are going to need to understand it and how to utilize it. So we're trying to encourage that.
right. I think, we do a lot of app development here in house, and our app dev people, they use ChatGPT and Claude all the time, and it's saves so much time. I always joke with my wife and my kids, because my wife's she's very anti-AI, and she's just like, I just don't want it taken away, and you fill in the blank of whatever conspiracy theory it is, right? But it's been so useful for us. I can tell you, I don't even read through an MSA right off the bat anymore, or any other type of legal document. I run it through ChatGPT right off the bat, and I say, what do I need to be worried about? And then I start going through and hitting the high points there. And it really cuts down so much time, and it's so much, it picks up more than I'll ever pick, right? Especially now I'm getting older. You get a little bit older, just like, oh, I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
I didn't even see that. So it really does a great job of all of those things. I know that there's quite a few, we have quite a few systems from a diagnostic standpoint that, the AI ops, I think pretty much every manufacturer has some sort of version of AI ops, but it does a great job, especially in networking. We've looked at many different products where, some of the things that it does today it's just crazy if we'd had that 10 years ago, right? And could have been diagnosing problems. And I'm not saying that they're changing configurations or anything, which, I'm sure there'll be a day where, hey, do you want to change that configuration? Hit this button. It'll just do that. And, then everybody will hold their breath and be tense. You'll be like, oh Lord, did it go down? But yeah, some of that stuff it's pretty cool. I know we've got some friends at the University of Arkansas up in Fayetteville. They go to DEF CON every year, and one of the I think what is like the lanyards or the things that they always give away up there. One of them had it was like a healthcare LLM that was on just like a little Raspberry Pi.
Yep.
And they're giving those out, and you put your symptoms in, and it would give you it tell you what you should be looking for, and what the highest probability of what your problems were. And it's going to revolutionize things like radiology just right off the bat, right? They're going to be able to see things that maybe the human eye didn't even see. I've got friends who are radiologists. They'll probably hear this and they'll be like, better shut your mouth, Richard.
Exactly.
If I end up, if I get lost and they don't find me, just remember it's the radiologist got me. But I said that jokingly to another buddy of mine about like mechanics and like auto work and things like that. And just you could build an LLM to just review pictures of problems and listen to the sounds and, your car's making, and be able to figure that out way quicker than definitely I could. So, but kind of we'll put the AI talk aside because I can get excited about that pretty quick.
I could talk about it all day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's so many things we can do that it's going to. What did Elon say? Hearing about 10, 15 years, none of us are going to have to work if we don't want to. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Well,
we're going to be able to.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, we're going to be able to, I want to use it. Like, we've got help desk workers that work until 12:30 at night. We could probably extend those hours a little bit with just some, almost like an AI chatbot that can actually help troubleshoot. You submit a ticket, it's going to scrape that ticket information and provide an immediate, hey, have you tried this, this, and this? Or our weekend coverage. We use a student worker on Saturdays and Sundays during the afternoons. We could use something like that built into our ticketing system to actually give more real-time responses to our students that are off our peak hours type stuff, that just to be more efficient, more effective. Not to mention, we're asking our folks to do more with less.
Sure.
Right now. And so, I think that could be beneficial as well. So,
and Trevor, I want to take a moment real quick just to say thank you for having those folks on the weekend, because I'll tell you, my daughters, they had some problems, and they tried calling, and I don't think they were able to get a hold of them right off the bat because they were helping some other folks. But they sent an email in, and I'm telling you, it was less than 20 minutes. They got a call back and got their email. They had some issues with email. Of course, they're like, "Hey, Dad, what about that?" I'm like, "No, you call the help desk. I'm not getting involved with that." But so kudos to your team, by the way. Anecdotally, they rose to the challenge for my kids. But go ahead, Cassie. Sorry, what'd you have?
Well, I was just gonna say I encountered a AT&T support robot. I guess it was an AI robot. It was my first time, and I was like questioning. I was like, "Is this a robot?" It had to have been, because there was a lot of like pausing, but I don't know. I couldn't tell. It was just kind of
nice. It was AT&T, and they were nice, so it was a robot.
Yes.
I'm just joking, AT&T. Don't hate me. It's a joke.
But I was like, like there was a lag time in the answers, but it was just so clear, and I was like, it almost seems human, but I don't think it is. But anyways, they fixed the problem.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, my kids, they'll always pick on me because apparently, like, our generation, right, has trouble spotting AI, whereas like my kids, like when they'll pull up like an AI like video or picture, apparently younger people can spot AI quicker than older people, and they're like, "Look at this person, Dad. Is that AI or not?" And I hate this game because I always screw it up, and they're just like, "No, Dad, you're so dumb. It's AI. How did you fall for that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm old, and that's what we do as old people. We fall for that." But that's so frustrating. At least they haven't called their dad Unc. So I feel like that's positive. But and we're not even going to go on to some of the younger kids' vernacular, and that's a whole nother podcast. But so let me ask you this. What's one of the things, after all these years being in technology, and you said COBOL, and that was kind of, I'm like, man, I used to code in COBOL, and I'm sorry for anybody who has come behind me and worked on the code that I built. I just want to apologize right now. But what keeps you motivated after all these years being in technology? Because it can be a drag sometimes. I get it.
No, it definitely can be. And I really just enjoy solving problems. And so I don't know if it's just in my personality and my nature, what you want to call it, but some of the guys on our team know that if they bring me a problem, I'm going to actually take it and run with it right then and there. They make fun of me all the time. They'll walk in my office and go, "Hey, here's what we got, but I don't need you to do anything with it." And I'm like, "Well, then why'd you bring it to me?" And they're like, "Well, I'm just trying to let you know." And because they know I'm just going to pick up the phone, call whoever it is that, what we're dealing with, and go, okay, what's your problem? Let's solve that problem. And so I just really enjoy being able to solve the problem. And so, and I've got a knack for seeing kind of a bigger picture and not getting really tunnel visioned. And so that's probably it more than anything. I'm not your normal, I would say I'm not your normal mold of like a CIO or a CTO. I don't even have a personal computer at home. If UCA were to take my laptop, I have a phone. That's it. I don't have social media. I've got LinkedIn, and I keep an eye on LinkedIn.
Same
but
here.
I've got no other Facebook, Instagram, Snap, anything like that. So it's all about solving the problem.
I'm at that point in my career where my skills set is so diminished, right? Not necessarily because I'm bad at what I used to know, but it's more of like things have changed so much. And I'm sure there's some bad at,
little both.
My engineers would be like, boss, it's not that you were bad, you're bad. It's that you were never good. But there's like many times where I'll be interested. I'll be like, hey, I want to see what you guys are doing. I'll try to get into a closet and they're all like, seriously, we love you, boss. But if you could leave, we get it done so much faster. So I'm at that point in my career where I'm just kind of like, I want to help. No. Okay. And
I'm not gonna lie, Rich. That's one of my biggest downfalls and it's served me well here because I've never gotten to the point where I had all the access to be able to do these things myself. When I was at Axiom, though, our sysadmins, I still had God privileges on our unit boxes. I could log in as root. I could build an Oracle database. So about the last 5 to 7 years at Axiom, the guys would cringe when they'd see me log into the system. I'm their senior director, and I'm over here. Oh, let's just restart this database. Let me change permissions on this directory in this Unix box. But here,
they all start sweating.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Like, is it hot in here? Who wants to tell him to get off the keyboard?
Exactly. So when I got here, though, I never really got into that realm, and so I have to rely on those guys, the guys that actually know what they're doing, to go, hey, right, let's look at this. And so I've shifted out of that. I was a very hands-on leader up until I got over here, and so now it's more of a try and instill that experience on others to do so.
Well, I always like to ask this question. What book or like podcast do you influences your leadership? Do you have like one that you listen to or go to?
Well, I mean, not really. My inspiration has been just the people I've worked for. I've had an opportunity to work some really good folks in my career. And it started back at Dillard's. I had a manager at Dillard's. His name was Sands Rogers. And about 3 months into working level 2 support, Sands basically came to the group and were like, hey, I just want you to know, here's my leadership, kind of the way I go, and it's, you're not going to beat me here in the morning. You're not going to leave after me at night. I'll be that guy. And it's almost like he challenged me. And so for the next 6 months, I showed up to work every day before Sands, and I left every day after him. And from that point, after about 6 months of doing that, Sands basically realized that he could rely on me. And so our relationship changed. And so I've just kind of approached, I took a little bits and pieces from every leader that I've worked for over the last 25 years and try and figured out how I could use their strengths to help me in what I'm trying to accomplish. And so that's really probably where it's all come from, is just me being able to try and take bits and pieces from the good folks that I've had an opportunity. Well, I really have never had a bad leader, and I don't know that many people can say that. But even today with the president, I was in my yearly evaluation 2 weeks ago with him, and we were talking about that and how easy he is to work for, and he lets you know expectations and helps you get there and things like that. And so I just try and do that same thing for the folks that I'm responsible for. And one of the things that I think most people in my area would tell you is that I don't ask my folks to do anything that I'm not going to do. if we're running a change call at 2 o'clock on a Sunday morning, more than likely I'm going to be sitting right there with them. I might not be hands on the keyboard, but I'm not going to ask them to work at 2 o'clock in the morning if I'm not going to be here and be willing to be vested in that as well. And so we've got emergency call outs where we've lost power to a building. We've got a generator not operating right. I'm going to be right there next to them going, hey, what do we need to do next? Or what do you need from me to help you be able to do what you need to do? So I try to do a lead by example more than anything.
Sure. Yeah, same way for me. I've been blessed with some really good mentors. I have not had the same as you. I have had some folks that were maybe challenging leaders. We'll say that, but I've even, one thing that I found, and one of my early mentors told me, he said, no matter who you work for, you can always learn something from them. They may not be the best leader, but you can always learn something. And that particular guy, he encouraged me to find the lesson to be learned in that situation, right? And I've always done that. And you know what? I've always thought back, and I'm like, I've learned something from everyone. So a lot of times you'll have some leaders, they'll be like, you're just like, whew, how did you get here? But they got there somehow. And so the trick is to kind of try to figure out, well, what was it about them that made them successful to this point? Because they, you know, and I'll say this, I've never been in a position where I had people who were just like so ruthless that it was like they got there because it was brutal, or they got there because of money or nepotism or anything. So I've never experienced that. I'm sure there's some people out there in our audience that have experienced those things, but I would encourage all those who listen, definitely look to see, even if you don't like or you don't align with your current leadership, there's always something that you can learn from them. So that was one bit of information or some mentorship I got. But man, it must be nice having all good leaders.
Well, I mean, and I'm serious when I say that. I mean, but I've had some like non-technical, like a Michael Hannon. He was very personable and people oriented, really didn't know any of the technology, didn't know what I needed or what I did, but he supported me from a personal standpoint more than anything.
Sure.
Which allowed me to grow in certain areas that I might not have anyway. And then I've had some technical leaders who, I were able to bounce ideas off of and really work with to grow knowledge and things like that. So, I mean, I've been lucky. There's no doubt about that. Now I will also
blessing. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I'll also say that every one of these leadership positions that I've ended up in have almost been a defensive move on my part. I didn't graduate from UCA going, hey, I want to be the CIO of the University of Central Arkansas. When I got to Axiom, it was more of a, hey, do you want to be the Oracle DBA team leader? Because we think you'll be good at it. But if you don't, we're going to go get somebody from a different area and bring them in and you're going to work for them. And I'm like, oh, hey, I think I might want to work for myself than somebody else. So yeah, let me try that. And then, as that progressed, the same thing happened when Mike Lloyd was leaving here. He was like, hey, if you want this position, I feel comfortable going to the president and telling him that you'd be a good fit for it. But if you don't, just know they're probably going to do an external search for this position. And I'm like, oh, hey, I think I might be interested in that because I want to be able to control my own destiny from that standpoint. Plus, I feel like I could do a good job at it. But I've never actually been trying to search for that, next bigger and better thing. It's just kind of always been a defensive move for my career. So,
right.
Well, we've talked a lot about work, but outside of work, how do you stay like recharged and inspired just to step away? I know you mentioned golf earlier before we got on.
I pretty much golf at least one day a week. Now that the summer's about to start, we'll do a Tuesday night MGA, and then I usually try and get on the course on the weekend. Do a lot of hunting and fishing. Last year we bought some land and a house about 60 miles north of here. And so my wife and I have been spending a lot of time up there. We go up there most weekends and, dilly dally around. We've got a little pond and 15 acres of hayfield and 25 acres of woods and got a tractor and, things like that. So, I mean, it's basically getting away from here that allow me to have that recharge. So it's outdoor stuff, things like that. I like to turn a wrench too. I work on my own vehicles. I've got 3 sons, and we've got about 5 cars in our fleet, and I really can't afford to take them to the shop every time there's a rattle or
Oh
something.
my gosh.
I'll dig into cars and side by sides and 4-wheelers, try and fix things myself. So
Wow.
Yeah,
3
we,
boys.
3 boys.
Are they at home still?
No, my youngest is a sophomore here at UCA,
Okay.
and my middle one graduates from UCA in May, and my oldest got married last year. He graduated from Fayetteville, and he's married working for Cruise.
Okay. So are they big hunters too?
They are. All 3 grew up kind of hunting. We had a lease down South Arkansas that we would go primarily deer hunting. The last couple of years, we've tried to pick up some duck hunting here and there. And my middle and youngest son would live up in Bald Knob if I'd let him on that property.
Is that where your property is in Bald Knob?
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah.
That's funny. If you'd let them.
Oh yeah.
I have twin boys, so whenever I hear boys, and I'm just wondering how they're going to be, and are they close together?
They are. I mean, they're 2 years basically age-wise apart, but they get along well, and they take care of each other the best they can.
Good.
I'm the opposite.
Yeah, you're the girl dad.
I am. I got 6 girls, 2 boys. I've got. So speaking of UCA, I've got 3 of them in UCA right now. So, yeah, it's a lot. Girls are special, let me tell you. But they can
a lot of emotions.
Man, you get emotion, and they can be loud. You think boys are the loud ones? I tell you what, like, I don't know what it is. Like once 11 o'clock to like 2 o'clock in the morning hits, it's like, do you guys go to sleep? I mean, I'm sure I was like that at that age, but I'm not at that age anymore. So I'm
Exactly.
Go to sleep.
Does anyone sleep in this house? But
well,
anyway.
So for the last year, pretty much every Sunday night, we do a kind of a family dinner that the boys, their girlfriends, spouses, roommates are all welcome to come over to the house, and we'll either, I'll grill burgers or we'll do spaghetti or buy pizza or whatever. And last night, I think there were 10 of them that came by between roommates and significant others and things like that. But yeah, when about 7, 8 o'clock rolls around, I'm like, okay, it's time for y'all to leave. I'm going to wind down for the rest of the evening. I like my peace and quiet. So
yeah, it was funny, but for us, it's, I've got, we got the 3 girls who are in college, and we built them a mini house, and they just use that as just a massive closet, and they all want to stay in the house, which, listen, I love it. I like that they want to hang out, but then they have like a lot of their friends stay over. I mean, and it's like a sorority refugee camp, like on Saturdays here. I don't even know who all these people are sometimes. Oh, yeah. But you see, and a lot of them from UCA are part of the, like the international program. So we got quite a few from international programs who come over, which is fun. Sometimes they'll come over and cook for us. Now that part I do like, but I'm not going to say no to some good food. But yeah, it is. It's definitely fun seeing the kids as they grow up, and one of them I'm very proud of, and not that I'm not proud of the others. I should rephrase that. I'm proud of all my kids. So kids, if you hear me out there, I'm proud of all of you. But I do have I have a daughter right now. She's in computer science there at UCA. So she and I have, because of that, we have a lot that we talk about, and she's able to intern with us here on the cybersecurity team. But now it's fun seeing them grow up and kind of forging their own path. Now, I did want to kind of get back to some of these questions. I want to ask you, AI, cyber, some of those like top topics out there. I'm kind of curious, what's what's an unexpected lesson you've learned working in technology leadership? So there are going to be people who listen to this podcast who, they're like, hey, maybe I want to get into leadership. What's something that you've learned about leadership in technology? Because there's certain, a lot of times people are just very, very, we'll say tech focused. But as you go up that ladder in leadership and technology, what is one of the unexpected lessons you've learned?
Well, and I don't know that it's a lesson learned as much as you don't always have to be the smartest person in the room, and you need to surround yourself by dedicated, smart individuals, and that's going to actually help prop you up. I mean, there are many a times that I'm not the smartest person in the room, and I embrace that. I mean, I really do enjoy people solving the problems, or people that are smarter than me, and me being able to work with those guys or girls in that space, because I think when you get to the point of a true leader, being able to embrace others is part of that, and being successful in that role. And so that's probably be the one thing that you might not hear from many CIOs, is that I'm not the smartest guy in the room, probably the majority of the time that I'm surrounded by others. But I've been very lucky in having some great people working with me, alongside me. So that helps me, prop me up where I have been successful in that role. So the other thing is you really need to be able to turn it off, and that's probably one of my downfalls, is that I can't turn it off. So there've been throughout my career, I've coached travel baseball, I coached Pee Wee football, and there have been many times that I've been in the first base coaching box on a Saturday afternoon, walking through an Oracle database being down, a real-time database being down. I'm over here going, hey, take another step, add a step. Yeah, no, don't shut that down. Yeah, no. Hey, add another step. And so I can't turn it off, which would probably be what my wife would tell you, is that I don't know how to turn it off. I'm trying. That's one of the things this Bald Knob property is. I'm trying to, asked earlier about recharging and things like that. That's one of the reasons I moved over to UCA, was because I was getting a little burnout with the Axiom and the everyday barrage of it just never ended. But I really enjoyed my time here at UCA and in the higher ed space. And I wasn't sure I was going to when I came over here. But being able to, like I said earlier, seeing the technology upgrades or the rollout of a new piece of software and the way that can impact a student or a faculty or staff to be successful is very encouraging as well.
Those are the questions I had. Cassie, do you have any more questions for Trevor?
We always like to ask this last one. So talking to up incoming professionals, what advice would you give them? Like Rich's daughter, we've talked about. What advice would you give her?
Well, and so I've my own son going to graduate with cybersecurity in May.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, really what I've tried to instill in him is, get out there and network and meet people. Some people, the younger generation think that they need to start out at a certain level, or they need to start out making this kind of money or things like that. And I really, of the mindset of go get a job and learn what you can learn from that job. And then if it's not really what you think you're going to be doing long term, then you can start looking at other areas. But kind of to Rich's point about working for other people and always trying to find something good in them, whether they're a good leader or not, it's absorbing that knowledge every chance you can get, utilizing your resources. That's the other thing that my youngest son, I don't know that he knows how to use his phone outside of scrolling Snapchat, because I constantly get questions from him, and I'm like, hey, go Google that. It's on the website. Go look it up on the website. UCA, all of our information is on the website. If you need to know how to do something at the university, just go look at it. And so it's kind of embracing that unknown, challenge yourself to try and figure those things out, stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's you kind of brought that up. I saw my son as he came up. He's an engineer, and a lot of those younger, kind of the generations that came after us, they did kind of feel they've got that kind of idea that, and I'm glad you brought that up, because they've got that idea that I have to be at a certain level, or I need to be kind of always at a certain monetary level. But I was talking to Cassie, maybe you can help me out. I want to say it was the CISO up at UARC, but he was giving some advice to his son. His name's Stephen Tyser. He said, when you're like in your 20s, he's like, it's about learning and burning. You just gotta get, learn as much as you can. He's like, because then once you kind of get in that mid 30s, that's when you really start earning, and I'm probably totally jacking up the cool thing that he told us, but I was just like, yeah, that's like a very fair point, because that's kind of how we did it. And I'm not saying you have to do that. There might be a better methodology, but definitely it's not always about getting the right position, but definitely when you're in your 20s, one of the things that I was constantly doing was just trying to learn more. Just the more I could learn, and the more, it made me more valuable for each step. And then, once I got my 30s, mid to late 30s, that really kind of helped position me with a lot of people. And then what you were saying, I think a lot of people in our profession forget is networking. Like, you've got to network, because I know there's some really, really smart folks out there, but you've really got to make sure that people know who you are and make those connections. And sometimes it's through work. Sometimes it's just through helping. So like, there's all kinds of technology based things that you can do, from going out and helping nonprofits and community based things. And sometimes it's just getting part of different organizations, like, whatever it would be. What is it, like IC squared or something like that? I can't remember what the one that everybody in our company, I think, is part of. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do, and just encouraging that next generation to do that, I think is, be helpful.
Learning as much as you can at that younger age. I used to always raise my hand if something came up. It might not be in my wheelhouse or whatever, but they were looking for, hey, we need somebody to go do this. I'd be like, okay, as long as you'll help me, I want to go figure that out, whether that was, really something in my space or not. And that's the other thing that I've always been a part of what I would consider relatively small teams, even at Axiom. I had 2 Unix sysadmins. I had 4 or 5 Oracle DBAs. We blended. We worked a lot in the gray area. Our DBAs had the root access to the Unix environments because there were only 2 of them. And so not being such tunnel visioned and just, this is my space and this is all I need to know. One of the things at Dillard's that I really loved their training program. So when I went to work for them straight out of college, the first 3 months we were writing nothing but JCL programs on the mainframe. But as you went to that next level, they actually put you in every area of their business for a week. And so we had to go to the stores and work in the store for a week. We had to go to the distribution centers and work in the distribution for a week. We had to go to their help desk. And that way, when they brought you back into corporate office and you were working on a program or something like that for receiving, you actually knew how that program was going to impact that user at the end of the day. You actually were in their shoes for a week. Now, you didn't know everything that they know, but you got to see what they did. And so that's the other thing is, going back to that, learn as much as you can at that younger age, being exposed to different aspects of things and trying to absorb as much of it as you can, I think will do nothing but benefit you in the long run.
Right. It's good advice for sure. Well, do you have any more questions, Rich?
No, I'm good. This was great. It was very
Yes,
good.
it was great.
Yeah.
Loved the conversation.
Well, I was happy to be here. I enjoyed your guys' time. Great questions. So
All right. Well, we'll have to have you on again soon, okay?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All
For
right.
sure.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the NSI podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share the episode. Got questions or topics you want us to cover? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. For more information, visit us at nextstepinnovation.com.